Well, I'm very happy to win the John Brookes Award. I think what's happening with landscape awards, that architects are becoming more involved with gardens, and the gardening world is becoming more involved with architecture. And John Brookes cuts across those oppositions. So his work is kind of architectural. He uses geometries that relate to the building around and sculpture and so forth. He creates these ordered landscapes in which wilderness and picturesque and eclectic elements of planting play. And that's a very good urban strategy. So I applaud his kind of design and his open-minded eclecticism. You know, garden design is in a way related to landscape design, because in any good park or landscape you need a miniaturization. You need to focus down in a garden scale with scent and color and so forth. And yet you have to open up to the bigger picture. I think that's, that's the goal. My life in architecture, architectural writing, history, design, a little bit in gardens, and then laterally in landscape. Those are the areas I've been involved with. And of course, Maggie Centers, where we are. Maggie Cancer Caring Centers. So, like the utopian Marx, I think you have to have more than one career. You have to have 4 or 5. That's a very postmodern thing. Not to be specialized only, but to move from one to the other. And I've done that in my life. A garden, like life, should have a lot in it. Hope is the big metaphor, you know. How do you give hope? And we've found with Maggie Centers that if we empower not only the patients, but the carers, then we get a creative, virtuous circle. And gardens are absolutely key in that process, which is a long-term process. Arabella Lennox Boyd has created a wonderful mixed landscape in Dundee of a journey outside the entrance, the main entrance. You see a maze, which is a pebble maze laid out like the one at Chartres. And this is a very good kind of therapeutic walk, because cancer, when you have cancer, is like a journey. But the house in the garden, the cancer center in the garden, are yin and yang. One without the other is only half alive. In an ideal world, we try to commission the architecture with the garden. And in the case of this center in Charing Cross, Richard Rogers got very involved with us and with Dan Pearson. And Dan reinterpreted what Richard had done. It's an urban site with buses and trucks and cars and noise and pollution and hurly-burly. And the architecture screens that, and the gardens focus you right down. So you're in a place apart. It's like going into another world. And you know, you want to regenerate when you've got cancer. And you need gardens to do it. Healing gardens. Well, I use landform in a special sense. It's part architecture, part sculpture, part city planning, part open air cathedral, everything. And it's all content driven. So some of my landforms have to do with strange subjects like black holes and DNA. Others have to do with the origin of life, the cell, and others still with what's the local situation. So I don't have a single content, but it tends to be cosmic. So in Northumberlandia, for instance, it's about a 1/4 mile long landform, which undulates up and down 5 times, and you walk the walk. And you should end in her head, but on that walk, you see the North Sea, you can see some great pieces of architecture, such as Seaton Delaval, which is by Van Brugh. You can not see, but you know that the Angel of the North is there. So all the local landmarks are picked up in my sculpture on the landform. If you think of the laws of nature, these laws like the law of gravity, electromagnetism, strong and weak force, and all of that, without those, nature wouldn't grow, wouldn't exist. So I try to go back to zero nature, the laws underneath nature, and bring them to consciousness and celebrate them. And that's what I'm doing at CERN. Meanwhile, one that's under construction is in Scotland, in Fife, and that is working with a coal company, Scottish Coal, to turn what was a landscape dug up into something really exciting with lakes and images of how the Scots went around the world and created many things. So all these commissions I'm getting are almost perfect for me in exploiting content-driven landscape and gardening. They take time, they take 10 years or 15 years, but whoever said landscape was quick.